I did pretty well at sixth form. I got 4 A's. I did maths, biology, chemistry and psychology, and I ended up getting 4 strong A's in all of them. Quite often I look back to that year and I realize, you know what, there's a lot I did right that year, and to this day I draw lessons from that year for myself. So I wanted to make a video talking about what habits led me to just smashing it, really. I would revise every day. Now, don't take this as intense revision every day. That's not what it is. I'm not pointing out the intensity or the amount, I'm pointing out the frequency of my revision. Even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes. I used to go home and I used to just briefly skim over what I learned that day. It is so effective to do that. You don't need to go home and intensely redo everything you did the day before. Even if you go over it for about 10 minutes, you just read over what you did and just read the questions and answers you answered in class, that will now stick. It won't leave. You have to take advantage of that gap after you've learnt. I think it's called the forgetting curve, to reinforce what you've just learnt, and that's it. That will make it stick. If you don't do that, it doesn't matter how hard you worked in class that day, even if you use the best revision methods. If you go home and you don't go over it, or if you don't go over it soon, you'll have to relearn it. I had a rule. It was the same day, the next day, and then 2 weeks later. Even if it's light revision, I would never forget what I'd learned. Second thing I did is I made a rule. I'm not allowed to walk away from a lesson until I understand everything. Not know everything, understand everything. For example, if we're learning how, I don't know, a certain enzyme or substrate, react with each other, if I didn't know what the enzyme or the substrate was, or if I didn't know what was produced as a result, fine. I can't expect myself to memorize everything every day. That's unrealistic, it's hard, it's difficult. But I never let myself walk away from a lesson if I didn't understand it. Why does that happen to this? So that it sticks in my mind. If you don't understand something, you won't remember it. An example is this. If I said the words walk tent down to you, for example, right? You know what those 3 words mean, but you won't understand the sentence. If I asked you to memorize that and I came back to you 2 weeks later, chances are you'll have probably forgotten it. But if I said to you, walk up to the tent and take it down, and I asked you what I said 2 weeks later, you are far more likely to remember what I said because you understood what I said. It had meaning. That's how the human brain works. Practice, practice, practice. Now, I am the biggest believer in, if you want to get good at something, do that. When you learn to drive, for example, in the UK, how much theory do you have to do in comparison to the practical? It's very little theory, right? Once you just pass it, some people do it in like 2-3 weeks, and then it's just all practical. Imagine if that was reversed. Imagine if you just did theory and had 1 or 2 driving lessons. You'd be terrible. You wouldn't know how to drive. For some odd reason though, that's implemented in a lot of other places, and I never understand why, nor do I agree with it. I did lots of practice papers and lots of practice questions. Do what you're going to do in the exam. Simulate that as much as possible, to the point where I would literally sit in the same spot where we took our exams in sixth form. We did them in a certain hall where we had our private study. We did our exams there as well, and I would sit there. I would give myself timed conditions and I would do past papers, and I'd be like, okay, I need to do it from this to that period, and I'd have to, and I'm not allowed to like look at my notes or anything like that. The point being is simulate what you're actually going to do as much as possible. Now, I'm into martial arts, so I believe the same for like sparring. Like when I do Muay Thai, I'm a believer in doing what you do in a fight. Sort of, obviously it's different. You don't smash everyone each time. Point is, if you do what you actually want to get good at, enough times you will get good at specifically that. So the take-home message is just do lots of practice questions and past papers. It is the best way to learn. Obviously, study the theory a bit more. Go over the theory, don't get me wrong. If you're scarce on past paper questions, fine, save them towards the end of the year. Or try to speak to one of your teachers, try to look online, look in the student room, and find as many questions as possible so that past paper questions are sprinkled into your revision throughout the year. And that's what I did. That is genuinely what I did. My advice to anyone who's taking sort of exams and A-levels at sixth form is that getting the grades right, it's not complicated, it's straightforward, but it's not easy, and I think that's different. It's not complicated, like there's no secret per se, but it's just a lot of grind. So that's you. Good luck, work hard, and hopefully it'll all pay off when you get to do the degree that you want to do and get to become exactly what you wanted to become based off of your choice. If you enjoyed that, like the video, drop a comment, it helps out my video so much, and subscribe because I make videos every week, kind of. My name's Zaeem, and I'll see you guys in the next one.